Bourke Sports Women's Hurling podcast. After a very, very big weekend of camogie, we have a lot to get through. Thanks once again to our sponsors, Bourke Sports, www.bourkesports.ie and norma.clancy@bourkesports.ie. So listen, guys, we'll crack straight in because it was a massive, massive weekend for camogie. We have our senior finalists now. Galway and Kilkenny, a repeat of last year's final. I think for me, and we should definitely open with this, the weekend was about two players who probably don't get enough credit. The man marking specialists, Shawnee, Healey and Davina, Tobin. So I think we should open the show with them because usually they just get a nod at the end of the analysis. Two of the finest in the game at what they do. So well done to those guys. Also, a quick shout out to Ciara Phelan and Sophie O'Dwyer, who had their own victory over the weekend. We won't get them in trouble saying why, but you know yourselves, well done. And yeah, look, we'll get started. So I suppose there's a few talking points before we go to the action. I had a quick look at the recording of the Tipperary Galway game today, and for me, the disallowed Cavan point was absolutely scandalous. At a crucial time in the game, I just can't get my head around it whatsoever. Like, it's a 21-yard free. Of course, you're going to break the line of the 21 in the motion of striking the ball over the bar. None of the Galway players gave out about it. She wasn't going for a goal. And I'm sorry, Andrew Larkin, but that is a terrible decision in an All-Ireland semi-final. And for me, it smacks of someone who's never played in a high-level game. Like, only somebody who doesn't understand what it is to play in a high-profile game could possibly make a decision like that. And for me as well, Ray should have been stronger on that and just went, listen, no, I'm sorry. He is the referee after all. He's the guy controlling the game. And in fairness to Bill Mullaney, there wasn't a mention about it afterwards or anything. But interestingly enough, like, we made this point, I think, Fiona, when we were at the games in Cork the last day. The Tipperary Muir Forna never went on to the field to question decision. They just kind of rolled with it. And I just don't think the same thing would have happened if it had happened to Cork or Galway. I think their Muir Forna would have been on and made a big deal out of it. Like, Cork just looked bewildered on the television, but they didn't make a big deal out of it and they got on with it. The next thing, it's a penalty to Galway down the other end straight away. And
yeah, I think the presence on the sideline does make a huge difference, like, because even watching Cork game yesterday, Thompson went down so easily at one stage over right by the sideline, but one of the Muir Forna were there from Cork started roaring and straight away ref blew the whistle. You know, it makes a difference, and it's all those little margins that will help you, you know, get over the line in a game.
Definitely.
I think Cork has such a huge presence on the sideline that makes a big difference. So
no, you said the Muir Forna started roaring. I think he was roaring from minute 1 to minute 60. And
he roared a bit louder
at the time of the incident.
Yeah.
Continuous roaring as usual, which is very, very annoying when you're trying to watch the game. But anyways, but you're dead right. I think a sideline presence at times can help you in those things. Now, the other side of it is, and you texted me about this, Davey, Ailish O'Reilly had a clear point that was disallowed. Like, from where I was sitting, it hit the crossbar. So she's in line with the black spot. It hit the crossbar and shot up. I was never that good at physics now or anything like that in school, but how in the name of Jesus that could go wide from there? Like, obviously the umpire knows something about deflections and angles and whatever, but that had to be a point as well. So look, it probably cancelled out the Cavan one. It wasn't a big talking point in the game, but I just thought, we don't want to go down this route in camogie again whereby, like, we're making these silly technical decisions. Like, just let the game flow. I suppose the other big talking point on social media anyway, but it wasn't actually a talking point in the stadium at all, was the timekeeping in the Cork versus Kilkenny game. In the stadium, the ref added on 4. I think we had a photo of the final score up on Instagram, and it was 64-52 or 64-32 was on the clock beside it. So it wasn't an issue. I think the issue there might have come out of the fact that RTE stopped their clock for the water break for some reason. Oh yeah, let's try it in the camogie, sure. Fuck it, why not? We won't do it for any other game all year. And caused consternation. But look, I think the ref added on 4 and paid 4 from what I could see in the stadium. So I think it's a bit of a non-event. But so they're the talking points. We'll move on to the action. Kilkenny versus Cork was everything we'd hoped it would be, I suppose. Davey, we'll start with you. You were really impressed with Kilkenny's defensive setup.
Yeah, I'm glad you started with me, because first of all, I have to put my hands up and give credit to Kilkenny, like, because coming into that.
I said, not start with that.
I get to find out before you say it to me, but the fact that they had played no games, no real challenge coming into an All-Ireland semi-final, I thought that Cork would have won and won probably comfortably enough. But in fairness, put my hands up, Kilkenny were definitely the better side throughout the game. And I suppose that my point did kind of, the first 10 minutes of the game, that's what we were kind of looking at. It was 1-3 to no score to Cork, and we were like, geez, is this going to actually happen, that they had no challenge? But then they came into the game. Like the first half finished 1-8 to 1-7. So Kilkenny outscored Cork 1-8 to 4 points. And that's really where the game was won and lost. But as you said, the defensive setup, again, we talked about it all week. Orla Cronin was going to go away from the centre-forward position. What were Kilkenny going to do? And in fairness, they backed their players for the individual battle and they won. So Orla Cronin went out to midfield to her own half-back line. Megan Farrell followed her everywhere, no matter where she went. If she went into balls, she would have followed her. And it did leave a bit of space. But Kilkenny had no problem with that. They backed their defence one-on-one, and their defence came out trumps. Davina Tobin, as we kind of mentioned as well, on Amy O'Connor, wherever she went, Davina followed her, and again, Davina won that battle. And probably another one that probably might have gone a small bit that we didn't see too much of was Michelle Tehan. Michelle was cornerback, but she was outstanding. Like, I mean, outstanding. She won every ball, every duel that came into that corner. And again, she was on Saoirse for a lot of the game before she was taken off. I can only presume it was through injury. Yeah. Like, in fairness, the defensive setup that Kilkenny had was fantastic, and their individual battles won them the game.
I met Martin Quilty and Anya after and they actually mentioned you, Davy. So I think you're to Kilkenny now what Sarah is to Clare in camogie terms. So I say that all weekend you've booked at the Misses of Mount Juliet. I'd say either cancel it or don't wander outside the grounds of the hotel. I would say keep it to yourself. But yeah, look, in fairness, hats off to Kilkenny. They got the matchups absolutely spot on. They nailed it. They nailed it tactically. And apart from that little start, they really kind of had control of the game. Sarah, I think you're the media that Paddy refers to in his interviews. We'll talk about that shortly. Although I think Fee, maybe you were pushing that short game agenda as well there for a while. But look, Sarah, talk to us about Cork. I suppose, why did it go so well for them for the first quarter of an hour? Where did it go wrong for them afterwards? And just give us your overview on them.
I'm really disappointed for Cork because as a group of players, they're so incredibly professional and they work so hard. For it to end the way it did yesterday in Cork on their home turf will really hurt. That's the first thing. The first 15 minutes, yes, they looked like they had the right game plan in place to play Kilkenny, but I just felt that when Kilkenny got to grips with Cork, and we talked about it last week in the podcast, when they got up in their faces, this lovely hand-passing short game fell apart because they weren't able to get the ball away as quickly as they would have done in other games. The intensity was just too much. And then at that point, what they needed to do was obviously start spraying long ball into the corners and using the play like I see Aoife Doyle in the second half. She'd all that space in front of her. She just had to get out and win it for Kilkenny. And that's what Cork needed to do to try and open up that space for Amy and open up the space for Orla. But they seem to be massively reliant on Gemma inside on her own for the second half. And, Gemma's not an out-and-out forward. So to put all that pressure on her when you have 5 other forwards who've been playing quite well in the 3 games up to it, they just seem to completely move away from their game plan. And I know Paddy referenced that in his interview after about the girls moving away from the game plan and that they should have stuck to the short passing game plan. But if it's not working on the sideline, then you have to be able to move to plan B, and that has to come from management. So you have to admire the likes of Aisling Thompson and Chloe Sigerson. They got 5 points from midfield between them. They knew that they were going to have to go, but the other Cork forwards weren't ready for that.
Sorry. I know you're a budding manager, so you have to get this right. When you win, the manager nailed it, and when you lose, the players are wrong. So you might want to note that down for your future managerial career.
Can I jump in there? Just an interesting one there. Like, I'm just asking the question: are Cork playing the way they are, and they're not utilising their inside line because they don't have the players to use it? Because we said like, looks like Cork forwards, Orla Crone and Amy O'Connor, possibly Katrina Mackey. She was out in the field though. Who else is going to really trouble the defence, or who did yesterday? No one really.
Yeah, I suppose you could argue that the balance of the Cork team is off in that they play all their pace out around the middle third because they want to run the ball. So I suppose if they're going to try and play that long game, like Mackey has pace, Amy O'Connor has pace. Julia White came on. Obviously, she's going to come back from injury. Has pace. Like, if you're going to play an inside line and leave them in oceans of space, you want them to have pace. But Cork they didn't set up their team that way. Sarah, I suppose the hard question, like the one thing Paulie said he was right on was to start Gemma. In my eyes, it didn't work at all. What do you think?
I agree. And actually, when Pamela went off injured, that was the point where I'd have brought Gemma back in centre back. Because if she was going to be playing in such a pivotal role, in the forward position and looking to carry the team the way they evidently wanted her to do, I'd have started her back in centre back and shored it all up. It was a 1-point game. Cork didn't play badly. They just didn't take the chances that they had in the previous games. And would you have agreed with me on that? You'd have brought her back in centre back, like held up the space.
Yeah. 100%. It was the obvious thing to do. And look, Maeve Catalan didn't do badly at centre back. Don't get me wrong, but when you're really chasing the game, I suppose the opportunity was there to put Gemma in centre back. She's a great striker of the ball. Put Amy O'Connor in on the edge of the square. Put the Kilkenny full back line under a bit of pressure because they were under no pressure. Like, apart from the first 10 minutes, that Kilkenny full back line gave as good a display as you'll ever see anywhere. Every one of them was on top. Every single one of them. They never looked under pressure. It was just where, like obviously, Paulie's the best camogie manager there's ever been. Like, he's set different standards. He's probably, I suppose, created his own competition in that he's forced other counties to raise their levels to try and compete with Cork. But I don't like this narrative that when Cork lose, everything is wrong except themselves. Like last year when they lost to Galway, they blamed everything. They did injuries, the referee, everything. Same today, the referee was wrong and the players went away from the game plan, the media is wrong, everything is wrong. Like, I don't want this to dominate the discussion because the Kilkenny players and the management and Brian and Tommy deserve the credit today for that performance that they gave, and not that we're listening to Paulie in the media dominate and giving out and whinging and moaning about it. Like, superb manager. Probably nobody will pass out his record, but just when you lose, you just have to suck it up, and that's it. Like, they were beaten. They made a few poor tactical decisions. They were out-thought on the line. They didn't perform in the day, and they were beaten, and that's it. And it wasn't a referee's fault or a timing fault or anything else. You just take your beating and that's it and move on, and they'll be back next year and they'll be a serious force again. There's no question about that.
And just back to Gemma for a second and back to Paulie being such a good manager, I would say that, like, he obviously knew that Gemma was only coming back from like a punctured lung. I would argue that she was only starting in the full forward line, obviously, because of the injury and the lack of game time all year. So, like, obviously, it would have been ideal to have her back centre back and even obviously move her back for, when the adrenaline takes over, you'd forget about all injuries. So definitely bringing her back at that time when Pam Mackey went off would have been a great call. But, like, I believe, like, he obviously, that was the only position she would have been able for with the injury. So we have to give a big shout out to her and fair play to her for, like, coming back after. You wouldn't see lads doing that, like, but she's just such a soldier for Limerick or for Cork camogie after all the years.
Nice one there, Fee.
But I think a huge shout out for Gemma, because what a soldier for Cork she's been, and to get that goal, to be in the right space and score that goal yesterday, absolutely unbelievable. And they really did miss her at centre back, I think, all year.
Big time, yeah. What would it say if you were a Cork forward sub waking up this morning and someone who had a punctured lung 4 weeks ago, that's a natural centre back all her career, started in the full forward line ahead of you, you'd be fairly sore?
I think if it's Gemma O'Connor, you'd be all right.
No, I don't think so.
I think we're giving far too much credit to how good a player Gemma O'Connor is. Best centre back possibly of all time, right? Mm-hmm. But an unfit full forward, no, sorry. if we're going to be objective here and forget about names and reputations and actually call it for what it is, that was a poor decision. And there's no two ways about it.
I think the performance of Claire Phelan as well, like I didn't mention her, but she was on top. Like again, the goal, like Gemma pulled away for the goal, it popped out there. It wasn't Claire Phelan's fault. Claire Phelan engaged the ball, but the longer the game went on, the more ball that Claire Phelan was collecting and coming out, breaking out, and again that probably just shows that she wasn't fit. She couldn't have been fit, and probably not the best decision. Yeah,
and the last place you want to be if you're not flying fit is in the top of Claire Phelan.
Yeah, I'd argue as well though that you know, we did say at the start of the year that Cork, once we saw the panel was finally announced, we did say that they're not the forces they were before, and you know they have their dual players back playing. You know, Julia White was one of the first subs on. She's someone returning from injury. Pamela Mackey was blatant, I'd say, broken collarbone, or you know, re-injured it from the last day, and she was left on the pitch. You could see she was in agony. Is it Paddy not having confidence in the subs that he has, or does he, you know, are they're weak on the sideline in Paddy's eyes anyway, you know? So, you know,
we talked about this as well at the start of the year and at the start of the podcast about Cork not being competitive outside of Cork. So winning your club championship, you know, Corsies didn't have a big say in yesterday's game at all. You know, he held very little store in the club championship in Cork, as evidenced by the fact that he relied on the same old players. So you're right, Cork were very sparse. They were not the team of old, and that showed yesterday. Now, I still think, like, Aoife Doyle played really well yesterday, but she was quite naive. She had a couple of 3 or 4 scoring chances that the likes of Shelley Farrell would have popped over. So there was an opportunity, I suppose, for Cork potentially to try the likes of Fiona Keating in that corner forward position and see can they get a free, or, you know, with such small margins, they could have had pacier players inside the inside line. Definitely.
Yeah, no, guys, we have to get this back on track because we're 20 minutes in here and the words Dalton and Gaul haven't even been uttered yet. So let's start with that. Davey, you were looking at Kilkenny first.
Again, I was just, a lot of the talk was about how poor Cork were, Cork's mistakes. But again, I probably didn't give them credit so far. But again, I want to change the conversation back to giving them credit, because when the need was most and Dalton popped up, Denise Gall popped up, even Miriam Walsh inside the full forward line caused a lot of problems for Laura Tracy. Like, your big players popped up when needed. And I suppose the biggest that I seen was that Kilkenny couldn't come outside their half with puckouts. They lost, I think there was 85 or 90% of them, I counted. But I think 2 out of the last 3 puckouts, Denise Gall came out probably to her own 65 and caught 2 balls, won a free and ran up the sideline with another one. And that's leadership. Like, that's grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck when your team needed it most and driving it forward, killing time, winning the free. And Dalton came out, had a 30-second conversation, who's going to take the free. Denise put it down, gave a lovely ball across the field. But it's just leadership. And that's exactly what Kilkenny needed at the time. And Miriam Walsh inside in full forward line, like, first half was her strength alone when she got the ball running at the defence, and the goal just epitomised what she was all about all day long, and she was doing it all day. And again, as you said, Sarah, Aoife Doyle as well, she won 2 out of the frees in the second half when needed, and again, great credit to them.
Yeah, no, they were top class, and I think it's important that we don't let the Cork losing become the narrative here, because, as you said there a minute ago, the players, Brian, Tommy, the whole lot of them, they deserve the credit for what they've done. Very interesting to see Kellyanne Doyle coming on as a sub for Kilkenny, who had been out with a cruciate as well all year. I wonder, is 2 weeks too short a time to get her fully fit? But what a weapon to have for Kilkenny to come on as well. Hard running
COVID's
style.
been kind to the cruciates, hasn't it, Sully, with the Sarah Friday on yesterday and Kellyanne making an appearance. It's been great, like, you know.
Yeah, like extended season, players that would have missed out completely on the championship as well. So Yeah, look, that's Cork and Kilkenny in a nutshell. We'll come back afterwards to talk just about players who might have put their hands up for the All-Star equation. We'll move on to Tipperary and Galway. I suppose, Fiona, you kind of speculated during the week maybe would Galway change tactics or change their setup and alignment to the field and stuff like that, but I suppose ultimately it wasn't really anything that we haven't seen before from Cahill and his management team.
No, they have those players that they swap in and out of positions. You know, I'll obviously harp on about this, but Niamh Kilkenny. Why is she out of midfield? Like, you know, starting her at number 10. I know she drifted back a bit, like, but God, she's the most natural midfielder in the country. Just leave her there. She scores more from midfield than she ever does in the half-forward line or anywhere else in the pitch. So I don't know why they moved her out of there. I think that, you know, starting Rebecca Henley was a great call. They just have such a force. They have such a bench. I just think that, I suppose they didn't worry too much about the tip opposition, and they just went about that. They did change up a few things. I suppose starting Teenie Cormacan as well midfield. She did a good job as well. It's just lovely they have such strong interchangeable players in so many different positions, but I would never move Niamh Kilkenny out of there. I think that she kind of got a little bit lost at stages yesterday. The ball, I think it bypassed her a small bit. So Galway were good, like, but you know, I don't think they'll be, I suppose they'll be happy waking up this morning, but there's a lot to work on and not a lot of time and not a lot of opportunity, I suppose, to work on things. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it felt like a pretty clinical performance from Kilkenny, to be honest. They kind of like something you might see out of the All Blacks, maybe. You know, just look, we're not playing terribly well, but we'll still keep it at arm's length and just dispatch you. Really, ultimately, you know, that's kind of what it felt like. I suppose we'd spoken about key players for Tipperary in the run up to this game and the performances they put in the quarterfinals. And it's interesting to note that in the semi-final, I mean, in the quarterfinal, Roisin Howard had 18 possessions. And in the semi-final yesterday, she had 8. Davina had 6 possessions yesterday, and Karen Kennedy had 9. So them 3 players had 23 possessions between the 3 of them. So I think while maybe Galway didn't shoot the lights out, silently they just went and cancelled tip and won.
That was such a testament to Galway's back. I was laughing. I was like, Heather Cooney, like, geez, she's a girl after my own heart. She was just tearing Tipperary players down, and then up to the referee looking as innocent as anything. What did I do there? You know? But
that was a Fiona Hickey special.
Oh, completely, like, straight
absolutely mill someone out, bat the eyelids. Who, me? Me?
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
But no, she did it at really good opportunities. I think Sarah Friday was so unlucky. It was 100% a penalty. I thought that was a really bad refereeing decision, because that could have changed the game. You know, Caught would have stuck that, and the game could have changed from there. But I just thought the Galway backs were unbelievable yesterday. Dervin back to her best. I didn't actually think she had an unbelievable year so far, but she was absolutely outstanding yesterday. It's just so natural with her. She gets there, she gets the ball into the hand, a little hand pass out to the half back line. I don't think did she even hit a ball yesterday. It's just getting the ball into the hand and the pop of the hand pass out. It's so clinical and just fantastic to see.
I love her interview as
well.
Like on the field, she's like, you are not getting past her, and she's collecting the ball and coming out, and then it's like I don't know how to even describe it. She's just sitting in the interview and it's so softly spoken, and it's like
such a lady, like, you know, we really well. She didn't even play Ashburn, like we were friends, like I didn't really know she played camogie. I was like, she's actually this superstar camogie player, but she just chose having the crack in college for a while the last year, and I was like, how has this girl not been playing? Like, she's unbelievable, but like, as you said, Daly, such a lady. Like, you know, the things she does on the pitch do not replicate how she is at all in real life. It's so funny.
Yeah, no, she was superb. I saw someone tweet, I think it might have been Ian O'Reilly or another journalist tweeting that Sarah Dervin is one of Galway's greatest sports people of all time, not just from a camogie point of view. I just think when she's in that kind of form, like the whole Galway defence, like it's very hard to single out anyone. Like Siobhan Gardner was absolutely superb, Emma Helbert, Tara Kenny, but like Shawnee Healey, like for me, like Cavan is just up there. She's one of these elite players, and just put her in her pocket for the whole game, and that was it. And it was just an exhibition. It was the very same as Davina Tobin and Amy O'Connor, just an absolute exhibition of not giving your player a sniff of it. It was absolutely superb. I suppose, Sarah, from a Tipperary point of view, like, again, this isn't taken away from Galway's performance, but you'd have to feel a little bit sorry for Bill. Like, potentially that forward line yesterday, or from 8 to 15, could have had Ashley Maloney or out the wire, Arena Friday, and Nicole Walsh in it. All players who have played this year. This isn't players who are like gone. This is players who have played championship this year for Tipperary that weren't there. And I genuinely like Bill. He's such a nice fella, and like, I actually feel sorry for him that, you know, they haven't had a proper run of it. There's always something that's happened that has put up a roadblock over the last couple of years. But look, despite that, and I saw Bill's interview on RT there this morning, just having a look at it, he was right. Like, the players that lined out gave it absolutely everything, as you'd expect. I think Sarah's frozen there. Well, she doesn't agree with me, one or the other. It's hard to tell sometimes.
She's looking quite angry there.
That's typical.
Sarah, it says a lot about you that I wasn't sure whether you completely disagreed with my point or whether your screen had frozen. So I'm not 100% sure. But look, Tip, despite the absentees, I suppose, that they really went out and gave it a wholehearted effort. But I suppose ultimately just didn't quite have enough in the tank today.
Look, I played against the best Tip team in 04 and 05, right? And yesterday, I thought there was glimpses of that crisp hurling that Tip played back in 04 and 05. Like, at one stage in the first half, the ball was knocking up the field by a hand pass. It was proper clean passes to hand. And I was like, oh, look at this. I'm so excited. It was so clean and it looked so good. And that's what I was so excited about Tip yesterday. We're not in for moral victories. Bill won't be in for a moral victory. Those 6 players that would have been at his disposal would have made a massive difference yesterday. But I certainly think from a hurler's perspective, and I know, David, there'll be lots of lads who will have watched camogie yesterday for the first time all year, and they'll have turned Tip on and gone, God, Jesus, they play a really nice brand of hurling as opposed to camogie. So that you'll have to take positives from that. And you're right. I suppose one point I made last night was that Tip only conceded 1 goal against a really busy Galway attack, you know, and that's why Mary Ryan isn't going to be coming out of my full back line for the All-Stars yet, because I just thought yesterday she got forward, she sorted out her full back line as best she could. They were clinical when Galway were around the goal, a couple of penalty chances, and they backed Donny Slattery to save them rather than allow Tip through or Galway through. And what I liked as well is that they were all willing to take yellow in the back line, you know, for the cause, and they spread it about, and, you know, they made sure nobody got sent off, but there was certainly a lot of players on the yellow by the end of it, you know, so lots of positives for Tip from that.
Lots of positives for Tipperary, definitely. Yeah. No, I know a lot of those players, look, from over the years, they don't deal in moral victories, so I don't think that's definitely not going to be a thing with them. But I suppose when the hurt of losing kind of dies down a little bit, they'll be able to take a lot from the season. You know, they were in a league final that unfortunately didn't get played, and they've been in the semi-final for the 3rd year in a row, so they really have established themselves as the number 4 team in the country, and maybe arguably the number 3 team, depending on what way you want to look at it. Like, it's interesting to talk about their style of hurling, because obviously their coach Denny Ferncombe has been involved with Jamie and Mary I winning a couple of Fitzgibbons as well. So like, you can see the bit of a hurling stamp over the Tip team as well. And look, Tipperary always produce natural hurlers anyway. Like, you know, they just have these stylish players, the Cooper helmets on. You know, it's just, you know, the Tipperary player, like, you know, the same as the hurlers. Like, you know, they just produce them, whatever it is in the water down there. But I suppose they'll be one of the teams that'll be anxious to get back early next season and crack into it again, because I think they're definitely on the verge of making a breakthrough. I suppose yourself, Sarah and Fiona, you both had Siobhan McGrath down as your young hurler of the year. She made a big impact when she came on yesterday. I suppose it's such an ace to have in the pack, and you're a tired full back line, and you put on a player like that, and she's buzzing around and had the confidence to step up and hit the frees and stuff like that when Carrie Dolan went off. So that's a big bonus for Galway to have as well, if there's players like that coming off.
I think we were talking about it beforehand there, just about Niamh Hannafy. We were saying that they'd she thought she was going off at some stage, and she got evidently very, very crossover. You could see it on the telly, but it turned out that it was Rebecca Henley going off. But on that same point, when Siobhan McGrath went for that goal chance, which she had no real right to, but God, she had some confidence in her ability. She was so cross that she'd missed it. And Galway were in control at that stage. But my God, she got to give herself an old whack in the helmet. And, you know, it just shows what desire, I suppose, she has to make that starting team. Her sister was absolutely, I thought Orla was unbelievable yesterday, just causing so much havoc for Tipperary. I just think Galway really, really want it, and they have the ability to take it. But it was just, they really just, I suppose, need to, readdress, refocus now into the All-Ireland final and stuff. But it's just, they really have the heart, like, you know, the hunger is still there even after winning it last year.
Yeah, no, their work rate is phenomenal. Like, at different times, it wasn't like that their forwards played poorly. As you said, Orla McGrath had a great game. Ailish O'Reilly had a superb first half. Niamh Hannafy worked very hard. Niamh Kilkenny got into the game. Like, I think what it was with Galway was that none of their forwards played well at the same time. It was kind of nearly that they were taking it in turns to drive it on. But someday they will click. And that's going to be a scary prospect for whatever team they run into the day the six of them hit form on the same day, because it's just a serious lineup. And when you look at even the subs they were bringing on, like, I suppose they brought on Noreen Cohen, Siobhan McGrath, Sarah Spellman, left Catherine Finnerty on the bench, left Niamh McGrath on the bench. You know, Lorraine Ryan, we've kind of forgotten about, hasn't really featured at all this year. Would have been a mainstay of the team last year. You know, so look, it's a very competitive panel, which is obviously driving the hunger as well. As I suppose players know if they don't perform, there's going to be someone waiting to come in and take the jersey. So that's vital as well. A quick shout out to Anya Slattery, Fiona. You pointed out yesterday she's actually a minor this year, the Tipperary goalkeeper. Made a couple of great saves. Now, if we really want to be critical, I think Sarah Healey won't be happy with her penalty. She kind of put it at a nice height at the Hurley side for Anya, but the save from Siobhan McGrath was superb, absolutely superb, and she made a similar save against Beth Carton in the quarter final as well. So, like, geez, I
don't mean to, like, I suppose, you know, disrespect some camogie players or camogie goalies even. That shot that Sarah Healey took yesterday, that would go in 9 times out of 10. Like, I mean, it was a great, like, it did, you know, at a nice height. She hit it at a nice height for Anya to save it, but, like, she hit it with a cool tech. There was speed and pace behind that. You know, I still think, yeah, it was a good save. It was right at her, but I suppose it shows the respect we have for camogie now. We're like, oh, that was actually not a great penalty. Whereas a few years ago, any penalty would go in. You know what I mean? So, the standard of camogie keepers at the moment in the senior championship and in the intermediate and junior is actually phenomenal. So it's great to see, you know.
Yeah, and exactly, it's a very valid point. It's like, I think Sarah Healy's absolutely class, so I was kind of half disappointed she didn't, like, dash it into one of the corners. I think she'd be disappointed in herself, because like, you see her taking frees and that for Thomas's over the years, and like, that's what she do, like, she just dispatch it. So I think, but credit to Anya. Credit to Anya for that as well.
That's why, like, I suppose that's why Anya's keeping Caoimhe Bourke out of the team as well. Like, we were asking the question there earlier on the year, but kind of the last couple of games has shown that, and has shown that Bill was right in his decision.
What a sub keeper to have, like. So, like, it's hard enough, and again, this is no disrespect, it's hard enough to get one really solid keeper in camogie. Actually, funnily enough, both Galway and Tip both had 2 class keepers yesterday. Like, the Galway sub-keeper, Laura Glynn, is an outstanding talent as well. So it just shows where the skill levels of the game are going, that, you know, like, sub-keepers now in camogie are class, whereas 20 years ago when you're watching it, like, it was just camogie goals. You know, like, I don't think there's been a camogie goal this year. So look, we're moving in the right direction. Skill level, obviously, coaching. A lot of the teams have designated goalkeeping coaches and stuff like that as well. So this is all good to see. We'll have a quick chat about our All-Stars. We didn't get too much flack over it. 1 or 2 people had pointed out this, that Carrie Dolan is only 19, which is very surprising. So obviously we hadn't done our research. So she'd have definitely been in the mix for Young Hurler of the Year as well. Davey, we'll start with you. From the team that you put out there during the week, has yesterday's semi-finals changed your thoughts on anything? Has anyone put their hands up? Has anyone maybe played their way out of the equation?
I suppose first of all, Davina Tobin has to get in. Where she's going to get in, probably take out the fullback that I had, cornerback. Sarah is delighted. So yeah, Laura Tracy probably has to leave the team, and Davina definitely in. I suppose that's the one obvious one. I suppose Anya Slattery is definitely pushing in. She's probably pushing in for a young hurler of the year and for goalie. So I'd be taking out Amy Lee and I'd be having Anya in as well. And again, that's credited to Anya's performance, or not just yesterday, but like especially in the quarterfinal against Waterford. And I suppose she wasn't really mentioned too much because she was just doing her job, doing it very well, keeping the basics basic. But the couple of saves yesterday, especially that one with Siobhan, that's why she's probably in, and that's why she probably takes over from Kate Lynch's young hurler of the year so far as well.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Like that would leave you with a full back line of Davina, Tobin, Sarah Dervin, Shawnee, Healey. It is just, it's a scary thought. Sarah, we'll go to you. What about you? Was there anyone yesterday that was on your team that played their way out of it a little bit, or anybody that was kind of borderline that might have snuck in as a result of yesterday?
Are we talking about just the backs a minute? Yeah.
No, just overall.
Oh, generally. I agree with Davey about Anya Slattery going in. I talked about penalty saves and Brianna going in for that reason, and you know, Anya's been a shot stopper now 3 times, so Anya deserves to go in between the posts. Outside of that, my full back line stays the same. Currently, my half back line stays the same, but Siobhan Gardner could potentially come in there at 6 if she has a good game in the final. But right now, I'm keeping it the same. Number 11, and Dalton's going in at number 11 for me.
Poor old Shelley. She had a good run. You batted hard for her, in fairness.
I think she's gone again.
Just while we're talking about goalies and all-stars and stuff like that, an interesting point is Sarah Healey suffering because of the fact that the Galway defence is so good?
Yeah, she's no shot stop.
Is that like, do you know, like she could go 2 or 3 seasons without having to save a shot.
She saved
really good, I wonder.
Yeah. she saved a penalty against Cork above in Salt Hill.
Yeah.
But
against Chloe Sigerson. Yeah, apart from that, really, Galway haven't really coughed up too many goal chances. So but it was like James McGarry over the years when he was playing in goals for Kilkenny, like would always have felt that never got the credit because, you know, just like the defence was unbelievable. So I remember my buddy Tyke Flynn got man of the match in a game for Kerry against Cork in the Munster Championship when he conceded 5 goals because he made about 17 saves. But like, you know, he was unbelievable. They got hammered, but sure, like he had 20 chances and saved 15 of them. So that could be a season's worth of shots for someone like that. But sorry, Sarah, we cut you off there. You're talking about Anne Dalton going in centre forward.
Yeah, I obviously Denise and Dan as a half forward line. Lots of teams, it's not really a surprise. But I suppose yesterday she just really stood up, and that merits her position in there. I'm quite happy with my other my other choices thus far. I think the Galway forwards need another really, really good game against Kilkenny to consider breaking in ahead of the likes of Niamh Rockett and Beth Carton. And
I know, Davey. You look very smug down there in the corner when Orla McGrath was lifting yesterday because you were the only one that had her in the team and she produced again. So
yeah,
you're happy enough with that one. I know with a big smiley head you look.
What about Chloe Pearson, lads? I'm the only one with her, and she was absolutely sensational yesterday.
Hold on a second, no, Fiona. I have her as well.
Davey has her in a wing back, of course.
Okay.
Fiona, what about your team? Any changes based on yesterday?
Yeah. I'm so sorry, but Sarah Dervin has to go in there. Like, Murren, you did an unbelievable year, and I think she'll completely understand that Dervin was just sensational yesterday. I think when the big games hit, Sarah hits big. So, Karen Kennedy, I thought was unbelievable yesterday. I know she was wearing number 6. I'm going to put her in at centre back for that reason. And sorry to as Ciara O'Connor I had in. I thought she was sensational. She played in midfield role. She was just so attacking. She was so strong. I think that she really, really stood out for me. She had a wonderful year, so she's definitely going in there as a centre back. And I'm going to get rid of Aoife Donoghue, guys. You know, it was a bone of contention.
Jeez, we were going so well. We hadn't even said anything controversial.
Actually, it's only because Anne Dalton was so sensational. I have no place else to put her. I actually, in my original team, I had Anne Dalton in midfield and I had left Aoife Donoghue out, and I knew you'd all kill me. And like, she has been unreal all year. Don't get me wrong, but I felt
we all know what's going to happen here now. 2 minutes into the All-Ireland final, there's going to be a collision out around the middle of the field.
No, I just thought Anne Dalton so good yesterday. She was everywhere, and I just think that I thought that her performance was so good. So Dalton in, Donoghue out.
It mightn't have looked as good on the television, but in Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday, the ground Aoife Donoghue covered for Galway was just
but there,
it
was very evident on the television, lads.
Not from my television, I don't think, but anyway, and the young player
facing the wall.
I'm going to leave Anya Slattery now as my young player of the year. I'm going to leave Amy Lee in gold. I do think she just had huge boots to fill, and she just did have a really, really good year. She's been waiting in the wings for a long time, so I really do think her position there is merited. And Anya Slattery, unfortunately, Siobhan didn't get much game time yesterday, but when she did, she was unbelievable. But Anya, 18-year-old, playing for your minors, playing for your seniors, for a strong, I suppose, resurgent tip team. She's living the dream there now. Like, maybe she doesn't feel like that this morning, but she's a lot to look forward to, I think.
Yeah. And are you keeping Amy O'Connor as your hurler of the year?
Oh, I don't know. Amy let me down yesterday, but did Amy let me down, or was Davina just sensational? I don't know. I'll leave her there with a question mark for the moment. We'll see then.
It depends. I suppose it depends on what your criteria is for hurler of the year. I suppose like Amy was still one of the top performers of the year, but if you're hurler of the year, you nearly have to produce every single game, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like, for me, that's what it means. It means that every time you went out, you were the main man. Like, it was all about you.
Sarah, you like this word. We need a scoring rubric, Sully, you could produce one of those during the week, and that'd be very transparent then in the not just who I fancy on the day,
Yeah, we're not going to be any different to any other All-Star selection committee. There will be no transparency here. We'll put out the team, that's it.
We're all great girls, sure.
Put out the team and turn off the phone for a few days and ignore phone calls, and that's it. There's no two ways about it.
And in either of your teams, does Orla not fit in somewhere, no?
Not yet.
No?
Well, she scored 2 points yesterday, and her sister came on and scored 2 as well. So
but the amount of balls she got, like.
I know.
He's a real cultural architect for Galway yesterday.
Yeah, do you know what? You're in for maybe I could be talking. Rebecca Healey didn't have an unbelievable performance there yesterday, and I did pretty much just throw her in for her unbelievable sidelines.
Well, she missed 2 of them yesterday.
Yeah.
I know.
How embarrassing, Rebecca.
Embarrassing. I know.
So maybe there's space for Orla there, but look, time will tell, Davy.
Yeah, so it's all very much up to play for. So just to finish up, look, I suppose you had Emma Helbert as your hurler of the year. Sarah, she didn't put a foot wrong yesterday either, so it's hard to argue with that. Maybe Amy didn't have her best game yesterday, Fiona, but again, has still been one of the top performers. And Davy, you've Aoife Donoghue in, and again, put in a Trojan performance yesterday. So, look, it's all very much in the mix, I suppose. If you run quickly through the teams, players who were in the team, Sarah, like you had Davina, Tobin, Mary Ryan, Shawnee, Healey, all were superb yesterday. Karen Kennedy, Emma Helbert, Aoife Donoghue, all brilliant as well. Denise Gall, absolutely outstanding. So, like, a fair chunk of your team really stood up yesterday and just said, yeah, look, we justified our selections. I suppose, Fiona, you had Mary Ryan, Shawnee Healey, Aoife Donoghue, Chloe Sigerson, Denise Gall, who all were absolutely superb yesterday. So, again, they've really kind of nailed on. And Davy, you had Sarah Dervin, Shawnee Healey, Karen Kennedy, Chloe Sigerson, Aoife Donoghue, and Dalton, Denise Gall, and Orla McGrath. Jeez, Davy, it looks like you're nearly have the nose in front here at the moment. And we'll try and not do what every other All-Star team does and just pick the 10 best players out of the Ireland final and wedge them in regardless. So we'll try not to do that. But no, look, fair play. Like, the standard is, the fact that we're even having to have these debates just shows that I think the standard of the championship has been superb this year. And that point you made earlier, Sarah, I got a few texts off people that I don't think would be necessarily camogie aficionados or supporters that were really impressed with the standard yesterday as well. And it's all about the product, isn't it? And I think hopefully if people were tuning in for the first time yesterday, they'll be inclined to tune in again and again after that. Now, we move on. We have 2 very, very big games next weekend in Cavan, of all places. Sure, why not Cavan, seeing as it's the epicenter of camogie now these days. 2 all Ulster or Ireland finals, so a really special occasion for hurling and camogie people in Ulster. I suppose a game that maybe we felt, regardless of what way the championship was going to be restructured, there was every chance that this could have been the All-Ireland final anyway. Two teams who've been in great form in the league and had shown great form in previous seasons. It's Down versus Antrim. I also said I'd have a look at this game because I suppose I tend to let you guys off and do the hard work on the senior games and stuff like that. This is a game I'm personally really looking forward to. Breffni Park is a class pitch. Two form teams, neighbours, rivals. It has everything you could possibly want in an All-Ireland final. I did tip Antrim from the start. I'm not sure if I was backing it this week, would I still stay with them playing against Down? But it's really interesting to see how Antrim are developing and the work that's kind of gone on behind the scenes. They won 2 minor B All-Irelands 2017 and 2018. They were very competitive in the minor A All-Ireland Championship last year. I think they hammered Offaly, and I think Kilkenny only beat them by a few points in the A Championship. At the same time, Cross and Passion got to 2 All-Ireland A schools finals. They lost the 2 of them, one to Loreto and one to the Ursuline, St Angela's and Waterford. But like my point in these, and I think it's Brian Cody's point as well, is you don't have to be always winning these competitions. You just have to be competitive and get into late stages and producing 3 or 4 players out of all these teams. And 2 players that have been consistent to these teams in the minor wins and with Cross and Passion are Maeve Kelly and Roisin McCormack. And now they're 2 of the standout forwards for Antrim in this championship. To be honest, they're similar in a lot of ways to where Limerick were in 2014, with the fact that Laurel Hill were very competitive in the A schools in Munster. We just won a minor All-Ireland and had been beaten the year before in the intermediate All-Ireland final as well. So like they're ticking off a lot of the boxes that you would like to see from a team who are trying to build themselves up from being B and intermediate into A and senior. Now, Down I won't say Down are the opposite, but Down are the seasoned campaigners with a team full of players who've just done it at every level and just haven't quite made the breakthrough to senior. Again, go back to 2014, they won the junior the same day we won the intermediate. I suppose it's the first time maybe we really heard of Niamh Mallon as a massive force on the national stage. They were beaten in the intermediate final in 2018 by Cork, by a very good Cork team actually, and were pipped by Westmeath last year, who've gone on to held their own at senior level. So I suppose when you throw in the fact that a lot of their players have won intermediate club All-Irelands with Clonduff as well, the experienced players they have, like the Cars, Paula Gribben, Niamh Mallon, they're a real seasoned outfit. There's very little form lines between the 2 teams with regards to playing against each other. They don't come across each other that much. Down beat them by a couple of points in the Ulster senior final last year, and that's the only time they've played. They've avoided each other in championship, avoided each other in league. So it's hard to call. So yeah, it's set up to be an absolute belter of a game. I suppose if I had to call it, I think if this game was in Croke Park, Down would win it. I think the experience that their players have of winning with Clonduff in Croke Park, winning Junior All-Ireland in Croke Park, and being beaten in Croke Park, which is an important thing as well. Like, they know what it's like to lose there, so it's not a big deal. It's not going to be playing their heads, what if we go to Croke Park and lose? The fact that it's on in Cavan, I suppose, with no crowd there, take the kind of the occasion of going to Croke Park out of it. It's not going to be the first time the Antrim players walk out in a stadium like Croke Park. I think they just might have enough to get over the line. And if they do, that'll be the 2nd year in a row that I call the intermediate from before the first game, which I'll be very, very happy with. But I'm not that confident either. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on it. I think it's very much, what's that phrase? TJ Ryan's phrase on Daly's podcast, Davy. It's the deaf dog, hard to call. We can thank TJ for that one. It is hard to call. You guys any thoughts on it?
I might just say, I guess they will have more to say on this than I would, just from watching more of Cavan and stuff. Am I right in saying that there is still no promotion or anything, so the winners of this will still play into intermediate next year?
I don't know. We had mentioned that before. Yeah, we had mentioned that before.
I don't think it'd be fair. Obviously, you know, whoever wins will deserve to go up, but at the same time, all of the teams haven't been playing in it. I suppose it's been a bit of a weird year. In that sense, I think that Cavan, you know, obviously it would mean an awful lot for Down to win. I think it would be just unreal for them. But at the same time, then Cavan, if Cavan, you know, whether Cavan win...
Antrim.
Sorry, whether Antrim win or lose this, I think that they'll get to play again in this grade again next year and only make them stronger. You know, having this experience at this level, getting to play the whole thing for a second time with a few of the second teams thrown back into it, I think, you know, it'll really stand to them next year, you know. So I think whatever team wins with no promotion, it'll probably mean, you know, less to Down. I think they love the promotion side of things, but at the same time, as I said, they're an aging outfit. You know, how would they fare if they did get promoted? So I think the lack of promotion would suit either team, is what I'm trying to say in a round.
Yeah. No, I suppose, yeah, it's an interesting one because there's 11 teams in the senior championship. So, like, it might just suit to go, here, listen, we will promote the winners. Someone had even it up to 12 because, like, we had 2 groups of 4 and a group of 3 this year. So I think hopefully if next year, if the championship goes back to normal, it would be a good opportunity to just make it 2 groups of 6 and even the whole thing up. No, someone had said to me that there was promotion, but then I know you had said it all along, Fiona, that I think in the junior definitely that there was none, that's what the narrative was. I know there's been instances in counties where, and in Limerick especially, where the junior and intermediate champions have requested to go up senior even though there was no rule in place to be promoted. I always think, like, okay, if 2 random teams had got to this final and that they were going to get clipped going up senior, well, then you'd say, well, actually, you know what, let's just, well done, you're the champions and all, but we'll reset and go again next year. I don't think there'd be any fear of Down or Antrim going up senior. I think it'd be actually good for their development. So I hope there is promotion. We should do better research.
No, I'm going to put my head in the line there. I'm pretty sure there isn't.
Yeah, and I hope there is, as in, like, I hope that if Down win it, that after all the years of knocking on the door, that they don't have to go back and back into the minefield of it again next year and try to get up again, you know.
That's the thing, as a player's point of view, you want promotion. Like, it's not your fault that the championship structure had changed. There should be no consequence of a team doing everything they can to win the championship, going out playing the final and winning it, and then not getting it's for players' development. You have to be playing at the top level to improve, and even if that's taking a beating or 2, but they'll be competitive in a couple of games. They'll get the beating out of the top teams, but they'll challenge the lower ranked senior teams.
Definitely, and especially when both teams are putting such work into their development. Like we spoke about Antrim there, what they're doing, but like Down had a team in the Division 3, the league this year. So they've 2 teams in, like, so like they're really making great strides. So you can imagine the boost it would be to camogie in either of those counties to have a senior team. And like we had said in last week's show, it's only 6 years since Antrim couldn't field a county team, and sent Lochiel down to play a championship match. You know, so like the strides they're making. So hopefully you're wrong, Tony. You don't tend to be in fairness on these things, but hopefully either you're wrong or they will make, or they'll allow. Yeah.
I think next year, if it does revert, I think if the champions or whatever, both teams get to play in the intermediate championship again next year, imagine that day out in Croke Park, you know, next September, where they actually get to contest an intermediate final, you know, on the biggest day in camogie in the biggest stadium. I just think, you know, obviously they won't be worried about that at the moment, but I just think it'd be lovely to have, you know, them winning in Croke Park. Like,
maybe that's what the women's hurling cup could be. It's like, it's not played every year, but in the year that you win promotion, but it's cancelled because of a pandemic, you get to play in the women's hurling cup the following year.
Nice.
So it'd be like one of these things. It'd be like the Bledisloe Cup. It's like, you know, you don't. It's not necessarily played for every year, but like there for you in the case of a pandemic. Yeah, that could be our niche. But
that's your job for the week, Sully, to. By Tuesday, we want an answer. So no pressure.
Yeah, better research is needed. There's no question about that. And then on to the big game of the day. No offence to Down and Antrim, but I think we're all a bit emotionally invested in Cavan at the moment. So, Cavan and Armagh. Sarah, let's talk about this game. This is just such an unusual occurrence. Obviously, it would never happen in any other year that you could win the Nancy Murray and play in the Premier Junior final. It's on their own backyard. Cavan have just won the Ulster Football Championship. Is it written in the stars? Is this going to happen, or are Armagh going to come along and clinically cut the fairy tale to pieces on Saturday? What's going to happen here?
216 was a serious score to put up in a championship game last week, and on that basis, and because of the strength of the team, the physical strength, having watched them up in the scheme, I'm thinking Cavan have this. Tyrone Tyrone genuinely to put up, 3-4 and to keep Armagh in the game, to keep themselves in the game against Armagh last week suggests that Armagh aren't as, I suppose, organised this year as Cavan have been under Johnny Granville. So,
Jimmy,
I can't see any other result than Cavan.
Whoa, that is a resounding endorsement for Cavan. And look, in fairness, you've been fairly spot on with these. So,
what about her six Tipperary to lose by 6 points call last week?
Yeah, that was pretty on the button as well. And call Kilkenny to win. Look, guys, in fairness, you don't get enough credit. You've been fairly knocking it out of the park with the predictions now this year, in fairness to you. You'll only ever hear about the ones we get wrong, isn't it? But there's no one sending us angry tweets to tell us we nailed all the predictions. So, well done. Not you, Davy. Not you.
Aaron is threatening to take me to Paddy Power. He's like, come on, we'll go to the bookies. And I'm like, no, not going to the bookies.
Yeah, it's when you start putting money on these things that it always starts to go. But I suppose, Dave, you redeemed yourself with your all-star team. But so listen, Cavan to win and a one-off straight shootout for promotion to senior between Cavan and whoever wins the intermediate final. And that's it, no messing. 10 minutes each half after the intermediate final in Cavan. 10 minutes each half, straight shootout.
For the Women's Hurling Cup as well.
For the Women's Hurling Cup and promotion to senior. There we go.
How many points are Cavan going to win by? Because I'm sure the betting will be on a Paddy Power because it's being televised. What?
I'm going to say +4. +4.
Okay.
Class. That is some call. I know we'd be joking about it and all, but like if Cavan do win this, and I know the competition has been kind of, I suppose, dismantled and stuff like that, but it would be just an absolutely incredible story for them to do this. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, Sarah said it, like having 6 scoring forwards. Is there 3 of the senior teams that had 6 scoring forwards this year? Like, I'm not saying they don't have them, but who actually scored in a game. And it doesn't matter who your opposition are. You're not focusing on that one person to pass the ball off to, which a few of the senior teams have been in recent years. So that's very impressive. So fair play to them.
Yeah, no, it's a huge weapon to have, and I wonder is the biggest danger to the future of Cavan Camogie is that Johnny has stepped down as the Westmeath manager. I wonder is Jimmy going to step into the breach there and take him over, because obviously the work they've done over the last couple of years has just been absolutely outstanding. But I think from looking at it, they've done an awful lot of work in Cavan to increase the number of clubs, to get the structures right, to get the competition structures right. So I think maybe if Jimmy did go to Westmeath, I don't think the whole thing would fall apart. They seem to have done an awful lot of development work there that have created really strong foundations. So yeah, I'm sure the last 2 minutes conversation here just going to be played on loop in the Armagh dressing room for the next week. So,
but it not only would it be great for the development of Cavan and hurling as well, it'd be great for us. Like, we'd definitely stay up in Cavan that night.
Definitely, yeah. The celebrations or anything like what the footballers had. It would definitely be interesting. Guys, that's it for this week. As I said, 2 great games to look forward to next weekend in Cavan. Hopefully we'll make the road trip if we can get the passes to get in. And then another week then to look forward to, I suppose, the final that we all thought, except you, Davy, that was going to happen was Galway and Kilkenny, which we all looking forward to. So a great fortnight of camogie coming, short in the winter definitely. We're recording this on Sunday morning as well, so geez, fingers crossed Limerick managed to beat Galway in the hurling as well, or to be an absolute disaster.
I think Davey called yesterday while we were watching the match a Kilkenny double for the All-Ireland. Did you see it?
Again, that was wrong straight away.
Yeah, Waterford had something to say about that, but guys, thanks very much again. If you're watching, make sure you like, subscribe, and thanks to our sponsors, Bourke Sports, www.bourkesports.ie.